primarily my interest is in manifesting miracles like a soulmate, a fit body, health, wealth. What I do is much simpler because what I found is that we can grow those limiting beliefs in a very substantial way without having to go back in and deconstruct.
Welcome to the Be Better broadcast. Today, we have the honor to speak with Mr. Greg Kuhn. And for those who don't know Greg Kuhn is a manifesting coach who specializes in manifesting the big stuff: successful health, fitness, wealth, family, marriage, career, and relationships are all examples of what Greg focuses on, your most important desires. And what is a better time than the beginning of the new year? Greg is a professional educator, coach, writer, speaker, and podcaster, and he has been teaching people how to change their beliefs and manifest the reality they truly desire since 2013. So a year after I graduated high school, Greg's been at this. Using a method forged in the fires of personal and professional disaster, Greg teaches you how to change your reality and assume your role as the CEO of your life. When you take away even just one piece of advice or strategy or a new idea, maybe manifesting is new to you and you're going to start using it and you find great results, all that we ask is you share this show with just one other person who could use it as well. You are the best part of the Be Better team, and we've grown the way that we've grown over the past 3 years because of you. So without further ado, the man himself, all the way from Kentucky, Greg Kuhn. It's great to have you here, sir.
It's great to be here. Brandon, I love the title of your podcast, Be Better broadcast, because that's what I'm here to do today. I know that's what you're here to do today. And when I say that, I mean, not just here in our interaction, in our interview, but as human beings.
Yeah.
You know, why we show up.
Yeah. There's been times in my life where, especially before I even knew of the concept of personal development, and one of the first books I read was actually The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, which she introduced me to the idea of manifestation and the law of attraction. And at that time, before I read The Secret, I wasn't focused on being better. I didn't know that there was such a thing as working on yourself. Like, I knew you could go to the gym, and I didn't really understand things like that, right? I was 20, 21 at this time. And I'll tell you, when I wasn't focused on being better, I was sad, I was depressed, I was bored, I was aimless. I didn't know what was next in my life. And the funny thing is, I was actually doing very well financially at this point because I had a great sales job, but I was just going through the motions, right? I was just doing the things, and I was buying all the things thinking they would make me happier, but they certainly didn't make me happier. They made me happy for a few minutes, right? The BMW made me happy for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden it's the same car as the Kia that you were driving a few years before. But I found that working on yourself and that constant pursuit of being better is the ingredient to truly living a successful and happy life.
Although I will say, Brandon, I think this is supposedly Zig Ziglar said this, that money can't buy happiness, but everybody wants to find that out for themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just thinking that because, when you said the BMW versus the Kia, in my experience, a BMW makes me feel good for at least a month. So, not just 2 weeks. And I'm saying that, partially in jest and just riffing off what you're saying. But, I do want to say that the dictionary definition of manifesting is to see and understand something. And I'm sure it's going to come as no surprise that understanding what we want to manifest is of paramount importance. Well, we also want to see it, right? I mean, we don't just want to understand it; we want both, and that's true. Those are true, and so I do want to say that while a BMW isn't going to fix me, the tangible material objects that I desire to be part of my life. That's part of the fun, right? Of
Yes.
being alive, and saying, wow, there's things in my life that I want, and can I change in ways that allow me to manifest them into my life? It's a very intriguing and exciting way of life.
Yeah. Wow. Can I change into the person I must be in order to manifest this thing into my life? That phrase is very powerful, and I want to ask you about it. But going back to the idea of the things in life, like I'm at the point in my life now where I have everything that I want. I've got the nice car, I've got my guitars, I've got the nice house. Like, sure, do I want a bigger house in the future? Yes. Do I want my dream car is a Rolls Royce? Do I want a Rolls Royce? Yes. But are those things going to make me happier? Maybe, right? But now what I find makes me happiest is building a platform or doing something to help other people, to share my story, to be in service of other people. And I know you greatly relate to that, having written 8 books since 2013, which that's a lot. So that's 10 years. That's literally a book every year and a half. So why did you become obsessed with being better? Why did you become obsessed with the law of attraction, manifestation? Like, how did that even begin in your life 10 years ago? What did that look like?
Well, very much or very similar to what you shared, Brandon. I I was unaware just how much authority that we are afforded as humans to serve as the architects of our life, our reality, if you will. And like you, I encountered The Secret back when, early 2000s. And I was intrigued by it. I was a student of history. That was my undergraduate degree. And my favorite part of history always has been how humans have changed and made themselves and their world a better, more efficient, more effective, more efficacious place. And of paramount importance to that is science. When the first scientific revolution gave us humans the ability to do so many things, it made the modern Western world possible, right? And not just science as in, Newtonian physics, which is a big part of the first scientific revolution. Yes, it allows us to do things like build an airplane that can fly. So in very practical ways, it makes the modern Western world possible, or made it possible, and still does. But also, the new paradigms that it created were even more exciting to me to study. Now, a paradigm is just a fancy word for the reasons we do things the way we do them. And the first scientific revolution with, Isaac Newton and modern physics, if you will, that it gave us all these new paradigms. Like, for example, here's one. Determinism. Determinism is something we're all familiar with. It simply means that if you do something, you can expect that it will create a certain effect, right?
Yeah.
Like cause and effect. Well, and you can also use it backwards. You can say, hey, look at this effect I'm noticing. Well, if I want to, I can go back and look to see what the cause is. And those are very reliable, predictive ways of being a human in the world. And that paradigm of determinism, which came out of the first scientific revolution, because we learned things like, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? That's a familiar phrase. And I'll just give you one example. Sigmund Freud, the father of modern psychiatry, he used determinism to create talk therapy. He said, which we take for granted today. However, at the time, he was ridiculed for it, but he was basing its veracity on determinism. He said, hey, if I'm dysfunctional right now, if I'm unable to live a life where I can be effective and get along with others and have agency, I can go back and look at the antecedents. I can go back and look at what happened in my life up to this point, especially in childhood, and I can make determinations about why I'm doing this and then fix it.
Yeah.
So determinism works really well. Other paradigms work really well. But the cool thing is we've had a second scientific revolution, quantum physics. And quantum physics is so much more accurate and precise as a way of describing ultimate reality that it essentially eclipses Newtonian physics. Now, it doesn't mean that Newtonian physics no longer works, but with quantum physics, we have some new paradigms. Like, for example, we have a paradigm called holism, which means that there is in our universe a field of energy that is all encompassing, that is everywhere all at once. It holds all the intelligence in the universe. Yeah. It's alive, it's elastic, and it's from this field that is everything, that all this emerges. So that didn't really answer your question of why I started writing, but maybe you can get an idea that I get really, really fascinated by this stuff. And I'll wrap it up with this. My primary concern that arises from all this that I just shared is, how can we take this information that we know is amazingly more accurate than the previous science and apply it to our lives the way Sigmund Freud did? And that's what my second life's work has been about. And I haven't even gotten into the personal tragedies that really pushed me into this.
Did you ever realize, let's say in early 2000s when you first read The Secret, did you ever realize that this would be the path that you headed down?
I was looking for the instructions that went along with it. And I experimented with the instructions. So the quick answer is, I was hopeful that this was an answer. I knew that it spoke to what I was learning and had learned from quantum physics. One of the basic tenets or takeaways from quantum physics is that every single thing here in four-dimensional space-time, which is where, or time-space, which is where we exist, right? We call this the world. That's an easier name for it. But every single thing here, you, me, the microphone you're in front of, the sign behind, these are all just different perspectives of the same thing. You are actually the source, the hearth of the individual universe that you are experiencing. You are its manifester. There's nothing esoteric about it. It's actually very ordinary. You can't stop doing it. We don't want to stop doing it. I thought I could come up with my own set of instructions, and I was a little off. I was a little off to the tune of creating a failed business that saw me in 2006 looking at 15 foreclosures, $1 million in debt, and bankruptcy.
Wow.
And that, when I realized that I had gone so far of a misfire, in my attempts to put The Secret into action and make it happen with what I envisioned would be the tools that would make it happen. Mm-hmm. I was looking at a personal and professional and financial apocalypse, and really was in a very desperate situation, and contemplated giving up in a number of different ways before I really rolled up my sleeves and said, I'm going to find out how to utilize this, Remember what Thomas Edison supposedly said, that when he would have a misfire, he would say, well, I just discovered one more way that it doesn't work.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, the key to doing that, of course, is to continue, right? To not, as long as I don't give up, then I can truly say, hey, as disappointing as this might be, all I've done is discover one way or one more way that it doesn't work.
Yeah. Love that. So I want to ask you about that personal situation of yours, because I think that that's very important in the context of what we're talking about here. But I had no idea at the very beginning of my journey what quantum physics was. I heard about it. It sounded really cool. I never took physics in high school. Some of my friends did, but I did not. So jumping from even understanding what physics was to quantum physics was a paradigm shift for me. So for those who aren't familiar with the exact terminology of what physics is, quantum physics is the study of matter and energy at the most fundamental level. And for those watching, I'm literally reading the definition from this scienceexchange.edu website. It aims to uncover the properties and behaviors of the very building blocks of nature. While many quantum experiments examine very small objects, such as electrons and photons, quantum phenomena are all around us, acting on every single scale. So we can't see these things unless we have what's it called? An electron microscope, I believe they call it, right? We can't see these things unless we had the most powerful technology, which you can actually pick one of those up for not too much, like $300, $400. I'm pretty sure you can get one of the basic ones. But what that means is if we put Greg under a microscope, if we put myself under a microscope, if we put the table or the chair or anything around you in this physical vicinity under a microscope, and you dial it all the way in, all the way in, all the way in, what looks like it's solid, what looks like it's simply a piece of wood, you go all the way in, and things are moving, right? You see particles moving and dancing and colliding and doing their things as almost an intelligence of their own, right? So what does that mean? I thought this wood was dead because it was taken from the tree and turned into a table. I thought this cell phone was just simply made of titanium or whatever it's made of, right? Well, yes, but everything is vibrating. And what that means is everything has these particles moving at such a rapid pace. And the only difference between objects is the rate at which they vibrate and their frequency, right? So it's same for us. If we put us under a microscope, you're going to see things vibrating and moving at this rapid pace. So you might be saying, well, Brandon, this is interesting. Well, why does that even matter? Well, think about your thoughts, right? We know now, this is fact. This isn't pseudoscience. This isn't hokey pokey, right? This is real, where our thoughts have energy. If you hook us up to, you put those things on our head, I'm not sure of the terminology, I'm not a medical doctor, but you put those things on the head, and you probably visualize what I'm talking about. When you think, your thoughts are actually giving off energy, right? So if your thoughts have energy, then energy can't be created or destroyed, right? So what is happening with the energy? How does that work? What is that energy doing? So how can we possibly think that our thoughts don't have power when in fact our thoughts are quite possibly the most powerful thing that we have, right? So the secret didn't go into these things, but when you dive in deeper, I found a lot of this stuff from what's his name? It's the older gentleman who speaks on the law of do you know what I'm talking about? He's still alive. He's in his 80s or 90s. I'll think of his name before
Bob
the end
Proctor,
of this.
maybe?
Yes. Yep. Thank you. Yep. Okay. Bob Proctor. I started listening to Bob Proctor, and he started discussing vibration and frequency and all this stuff I didn't understand at the time, but looking back now, I'm able to start to connect the dots better. But okay, so my question for you then is, what was the turning point then of you going through these personal and financial difficulties to then realizing I am in control of my life, to you now being where we are right now? 10 years seems like a long time, but it happens in the blink of an eye. Like, how did that happen for you? What was the turning point?
Yeah, the turning point was being pushed into a corner where I had no other options. Sometimes we talk about being given the gift of desperation. I had spent years working my rear end off on a real estate business that I created. And I'm a very disciplined person. I always have been. And I truly held myself to a discipline of positive thinking and positive thought, positive affirmations, regarding myself and the business and what was happening. And of course, I was rolling up my sleeves and also putting in all the sweat equity because, I still like to adhere to the idea that we should pray like everything depends on God and work like everything depends on us. And that was the formula that I followed. Only take the word God out and put, positive thinking, positive thought, because I can influence the universe with my positive thinking and my positive thought. Well, if you take me at my word that I was truly doing those things, and you're safe to do that, I still found myself, it was June 2006. I got a phone call from my attorney. It was a phone call I was expecting, although dreading, because for the last 5 years or so, I'd been working so hard to make something of my real estate business, and all that had been happening was a slow descent into now what was a disaster. And she said to me, Greg, I can only buy you about 6 more months, which means I was 6 months away from being a 36-year-old father of 3 young boys who was now going to fail a life-defining level of failure. Especially and something that I had been so proud about and so confident in, and as I mentioned before, I've $1 million of debt, 15 foreclosures, bankruptcy. That's what I was 6 months away from, and nothing had worked before. Well, this time I decided to add some brain science to my plan. I didn't have anything left to lose, so I decided that I would figure out a way to grow. And here's the differentiator, okay? And this is the key part of this. And it really speaks to how ordinary manifesting is. If anyone watching or listening to this believes manifesting to be an esoteric or new age or even a woo-woo, we hear that thrown around, topic, it's not. It's not. It's very scientific. That what I discovered and continue to use to this day, actually, it's so science-based, it's surprising to me if it ever doesn't work. And essentially what I did was I continued to draw inspiration from quantum physics, but I also started to incorporate brain science. And I crafted a method to grow. Once again, differentiating. I'm not focusing solely on my conscious thoughts in what I'm describing. What I crafted was a way, I hoped, turned out to be accurate, but at the time I hoped to grow my inherited subconscious beliefs. And those beliefs inherited as a youth, before about age 9, okay, this is for all humans. And the reason it's before age 9 is because right around age 9, that's when we start being able to discern from the information we're receiving. But prior to that, we soak it in verbatim without question. We ingest it. It gets put in our subconscious. And by the way, those beliefs that we inherit, they're inherited. I use that term specifically because they come from our most trusted caregivers. And as well-intentioned as our most trusted caregivers are, they can only pass along what they themselves inherited. So what has happened is that in our subconscious, we sail into adulthood harboring some beliefs, not all of them, but some of them that are very limiting, that prove to be too limiting as adults, because the reason they prove to be too limiting, those subconscious beliefs are the actual fulcrum. They are what manifest our life. They manifest the form, the function, the meaning, and the value of everything. And they're more powerful even than actions.
Give me some examples of these inherited subconscious beliefs that you held and that you've seen other students of yours hold.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's a good one. And I don't want to pick on my own parents. I'm a parent myself, and I promise you, I passed along limiting beliefs to my children.
Sure.
This is not an indictment of parents. This is not a blaming session at all. We are human. We can't help it. If we're going to raise a child and that child is going through important stages of development, we're going to pass along limiting beliefs. Okay, so having given that caveat, I love you, Mom. I love you, Dad. I know you did the best, and I extend that same compassion to myself as a parent. Um, Here's something that I learned growing up. I remember there was a time that I was a little chubby, and a department store, when I went to get jeans as a child, I had to buy husky-sized jeans, which is a very nice euphemism for, hey, kid, you should lose some weight, I guess.
I've
Anyway,
been there. Yep.
I my mom, and rightfully so, she didn't want me to grow up and be, and I don't want to use pejorative terms because we don't need to label anybody, but you get my drift here. My
Yep.
mom was coming from a very good and loving place that she didn't want that for me. And sometimes she used tough love. She used a lot of techniques, trying her best to help me lose weight. Let's be frank about it. Well, as well-intentioned as she was, the message I got was, hey, Greg, you need to look a certain way and be a certain way for your mom to be happy with you.
Yes.
And what happens is that, and as I go out into adulthood, well, I'm no longer with my mom. So what's the problem, right? I don't, I mean, I can send her photos of myself. Hey, Mom, guess what? Still, are you still happy?
This is
And
what I look
and
like. Yeah.
yeah, hey, woo, it's keeping it up. What happens is that's now a belief, and all I have to do as an adult is just put a new person in the place of my mom, and with this new person, it may not be about weight, but the belief remains, and the belief functions. It continues to function, and so the belief really just becomes this idea that I have to do something to please important people in my life, which is connected to their being okay with me. And now, as an adult, since it's not my mom, let's say it's a significant other, well, now I've got a new factor added in, which is, well, my mom's never going to leave me, but they might. So
Yeah.
there's an added emphasis. And the truth is that while one innocently inherited belief that took residence in my subconscious in ways that my mother never intended for me to have, now is functioning in ways that, you know what, Brennan, the truth is sometimes that very belief that I just described, it has served me, right?
Mhm.
It has motivated me to please people and work hard, and those aren't bad things in and of themselves. However, that as a baseline, it's just a ripe setup for things like hidden agendas in relationships
Yeah.
and unspoken agreements that I'm abiding by, but I have no idea if you are.
True.
Things like that make relationships so difficult and so challenging. So, yes, our beliefs govern our lives. Now, I want to say this, and I'll wrap it up here because I've been talking for quite a while here.
No, I
I
like it.
get
It's
really
good.
excited about this. Um, we uh, we we don't, we think of manifesting often as the output of what we do, right? The work of a manifester is creating what we want. And I understand why we think of that often, but the true work of a manifester it's a way of being. It's a way of life, right? And what we find is that while these beliefs that we inherited, the ones that are limiting, they, just like the beautiful ones, that work for us, they're in our subconscious. That means that is below our conscious awareness. We don't even know what's there, but we see their shadows every day. We see the shadows of limiting beliefs every day in the life we manifest. The shadows are the parts of our life that are unfulfilling, dissatisfying, and painful. That's how we know we have limiting beliefs in there. And we all do.
Wow. So would you say one of the first steps to manifesting what you want is to become aware of these limiting and inherited beliefs that we've been passed on?
That is, there are many methods to become aware. And I have certainly spent time, I've invested time and energy into becoming aware of limiting beliefs. However, I will also add that becoming aware of the specific beliefs is not a part of my process.
Okay.
I think I've already endorsed it enough for folks to know I'm not poo-pooing the idea. However, what I do is much simpler because what I found is that we can grow those limiting beliefs in a very substantial way without having to go back in and deconstruct. Because truthfully, why I am this way right now, is of far lesser value in terms of becoming the person who can manifest the life that I truly desire than simply paying attention. Brandon, you have interviewed so many successful people. That's one of the beautiful things, isn't it, about being in this field, in this space, is getting to meet so many successful people that want to, be better. Mm-hmm. And one of the characteristics that I have learned from the most successful people in my life, the people who are manifesting a life that it truly, meets their desires. And I am fortunate enough to count myself in that group today. And the reason is because I've learned life, or reality, the life I manifest, it is here to inform me, not define me.
It's here to inform you, but not define you.
Correct.
It's here to inform you of what? What does that mean?
It informs me of the capability and the effectiveness of the beliefs, those inherited subconscious beliefs that I bring into this moment. And by the way, I expect myself to continually be dissatisfied by what I find because I'm growing, I'm changing, my horizons are on the move as well. So I hope and expect to always find that I want and need to grow those beliefs further into alignment. It also informs me as to how to proceed forward, based on what I learned. But we inherited these beliefs, Brandon. We inherited them. We're not, one of the great secret takeaways from quantum physics for manifestors, which, as we've already said, we're all manifestors. It doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. It doesn't matter whether you think it's fantastic or not. Well, one of the great takeaways is because we inherited these beliefs that are manifesting our life, we're not responsible. We are not to blame for the bad parts of our life. Now, we are responsible for changing them. Yeah. We are responsible for growing those beliefs if that's what we want to do, if we want to change the life we're manifesting.
Yes.
But unless we're doing things on purpose, if I'm intentionally making myself broke, unhealthy, unfit, unlovable, unresponsive, all these, if I'm doing that on purpose, then okay, yes, I am to blame. But otherwise, I'm off the hook. It's the beliefs. There is no reason for us to identify with our beliefs. They're not who we are. They're what we were given. They're not subjective. because they are manifesting our reality. And our reality, we knock on all this. I mean, you mentioned it. Our reality is very real. So it's not subjective in the sense that it's, irrelevant, but it is subjective in the sense that you could have inherited any belief that you have. You could have a different one simply by having been around different caregivers. So in that sense, it is entirely subjective, and we are empowered to grow those beliefs and change any part of our life if we're motivated.
What's up, Be Better family? It's Brandon Eastman here. And as a thank you for tuning in to the Be Better broadcast, I want to give you a very special gift. For a limited time, you can get a free digital copy of my book titled Be Extraordinary, Your Guide to Self-Mastery. This book is packed with insights and actionable steps that will help you to unlock your fullest potential in the 5 key areas of your life. But that's not all. Along with the book, I also want to give you the audiobook version absolutely free. Imagine having the power to transform your life right at your fingertips and in your ears anytime, anywhere. Go grab your copy at bebetterindustries.com/book. You'll also find the link in the episode show notes. Go and grab your copy and join me in making a positive impact on the world. Now back to the show. Yeah, and I think it's very empowering too, the fact that while we have these subconscious inherited beliefs and we grew up the way that we grew up, we were born where we were born, we can't control that. Like you said, you're not responsible for that, but you are responsible for staying that way. And I think that that's very liberating. And it's also very liberating how we don't need to just start deconstructing these beliefs. Because I shared it's funny, that story you shared about, the husky genes and wanting to appear a certain way to your mom and how that translated to people in your life later on in life, even when you moved out. I share the same exact story. Like literally, I was told I had big bones when I was young. My grandma always said, "Oh, you're not fat. You're just big bone. This is the way that you're built." So in my mind, I'm like, okay, now I have a reason for looking this way. But now I'm under the impression I'm always going to look this way. So even at times like my senior year of high school, I lost like 40, 50 pounds because I was taking thermogenics and I highly limited what I was eating. I still looked at myself in the mirror and I saw the fat kid, the big boned kid. Right. But everyone else is like, dude, you lost a lot of weight, dude. Like, your clothes are huge on you. I had my chemistry teacher come over to me and ask me if I was doing drugs. And I was like, no, I just lost a lot of weight. And she's like, I'm just making sure everything's okay. But I would look at myself and still see the fat kid. Right. And even still, I'm 29, I'm almost 30 years old. Even still, I have to consciously be aware of what I see when I look in the mirror. Right. Because I'm still operating at least in a little bit from this past programming from my childhood, right? And I'm working every day to improve that. And believe me, I'm very happy with where I am right now and the way that I look and the way that I feel. And I'm getting better at this, right? Be better, right? At 1% every day. It's not a light switch that turns everything from where it is to where you want it to be. So, okay. So let me ask you then, if we don't have to deconstruct those limiting beliefs, then how do we become someone who is attracting the things that we want into our life? How do we manifest? Can you give us an idea, a bird's eye view of your process?
Yeah, absolutely. The bird's eye view is that, well, I think of it this way. I was thinking about this morning. I've never talked about it this way, but I think this is interesting. If you fall into a ditch and you want to get out, well, you can't climb out of a ditch without, reaching for the first handhold. I'm trying to,
Yeah.
And where's the first handhold? It's wherever you can reach, right? And then you start climbing. If you're in a ditch and you say, well, to get out of this ditch, my first handhold has to be the lip of the ditch. Right. and that's the only way I can get myself out of here.
Yeah.
Well, if you're in a 7-foot ditch, that's probably going to work. But if you're in a 10-foot ditch, you're out of luck. You're in the ditch and you're never going to leave if that's truly where you are, right?
Yeah, you'll just keep saying it's too far away, I can't reach it, so you don't try.
And in a nutshell, that's a pretty good metaphor for what I teach people to do. The folks that I love working with people who have been trying to climb out of their ditch, right? Whether that's a body they don't like, financial situation they don't like, a romantic situation they don't like, a parenting situation they don't like, career situation they don't like, a living. We can go on these things, and I call manifest the big stuff, right? That's what I'm interested in when it comes to manifesting my life differently. While it's fun to play games, and I don't call them games because they're inconsequential, like manifesting different color cars or manifesting pennies and things that I have a lot of fun with, and they're very valuable tools. Primarily, my interest is in manifesting miracles like a soulmate, a fit body, health, wealth, these parts of our, fulfilling relationships with my sons, these parts of our life that are so integral. And when I find myself in one of those areas, in a ditch, if you will, right? The ditch being the metaphor, of course, for I'm not where I want to be. This isn't the life that I want here in this part of my life. It's paramount to just start with the first handhold we can reach. And unfortunately, a lot of people, when they encounter manifesting instruction, they are more or less encouraged to reach for the lip of the ditch, by changing their thoughts, their conscious thoughts, right? Now, if you can reach the lip of the ditch, changing your conscious thoughts that's a perfect tool for getting out of the ditch. And by the way, changing your conscious thoughts to more positive, healthy thoughts is always a good thing. It's not ever something we shouldn't do. However, it's not a good tool for getting out of a ditch that's too tall to reach the lip.
So let's talk about a specific example.
Sure.
Okay, so let's say it's the beginning of the year. Okay, and for those listening in July, it's the same thing then as it is now, right? So it's the beginning of the year. A lot of people say, okay, I want to get in shape this year. So that's a big thing, right? You help people manifest the big stuff. That's a big thing. Looking the way you want to look, feeling the way you want to feel. So you got someone who might be a little overweight and they want to be fit. They want to feel better. Okay, so what does that process look like? Let me ask you this. How big is that ditch? Is the ditch 30 feet? Is it 40? Is it 50? Or is it 10 foot? Do we make the ditch look bigger than it really is? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I certainly can say that I'm sure that you and everyone listening can relate to this, is the longer a part of my life remains frustrating to me, typically, the more hopeless the situation will be for me. And we know why. Because in important parts of our lives, like the ones that we've already mentioned, we just don't have the ability to truly stop caring about that. We can, we can deflect, and we can justify and rationalize and stuff and ignore and, all those types of things. But can we ever really forget that we want to be healthy and fit and loved and, wealthy? And we can't, right? So that certainly, the problem can pretty quickly begin to be experienced as far bigger than what it actually is. And there's no doubt about that. My formula, if I wanted to break it down, it's a pretty simple formula. It's a 3-step formula. One, we, I, you, we. I'll just say I, because this is how I live my life. I love teaching other people how to do it too. I identify the best instructions I can find. The best instructions that I can get access to, and Optimally, of course, having a person mentoring me is the epitome. But I can find instructions in a book, on a website, and YouTube videos. So I find the best instructions that I have access to. Then I give my best effort to follow those instructions, my best effort, no more, no less. Then I grow my inherited subconscious beliefs. All of those things in concert is a magic formula. Now, typically, the people that I encounter, and I completely understand this, have been doing the first of those two to the best of their ability. We all have access to great world-class instruction. I mean, the Be Better broadcast is a great example of that, right? And we're all giving our best effort. And I know the best effort that we can give looks different from moment to moment and day to day. And that's not to say that, look, I'm not Superman, so I'm not suggesting the best effort looks like perfection. In fact, part of what I teach, I'm really adamant about focusing on effort rather than outcome, because effort is controllable. Effort is available to me no matter what my circumstances are, right?
Yep.
And ironically, of course, and we all know this, it's ironic that the best outcomes I've ever produced have come when I've focused solely on the effort rather than the outcome. It takes a lot of pressure off, for one thing, right?
Yeah. Determinism.
So I'm meeting people who've got access to great instruction and direction, and they're giving effort, and they have been. The missing ingredient is growing those inherited subconscious beliefs. And it's so beautiful when even when someone hasn't been doing it, even when someone isn't even aware that potential exists, because in a certain sense, growing inherited subconscious beliefs could be looked at as a low-hanging fruit activity. It produces results right from the beginning. Now, not the ultimate results that I want and that we want. Of course not. It takes time. There's no such thing, Brandon, there's no such thing as cause and effect in ultimate reality, in the quantum world. No such thing. However, here in macro reality, in four-dimensional space-time, there are sometimes things that I need to do, not to make something happen, but to believe that I can manifest that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that process, number one, identify the best strategy. When I went from 260 pounds to 180 pounds within the course of 6 months, I did exactly what you suggested, right? I looked up different programs and I found a program I really connected with. It was called Kino Body. And I still recommend this program. It's by a guy named Greg Gallagher. And he pretty much talked about, it's two things: lift 3 times a week, really 3 things: walk 45 minutes a day. And number 3 is intermittent fasting, right? Mm-hmm. And you look like a guy who intermittent fasts. Do you intermittent fast?
I have done it. I think it's a really cool thing. I'm not doing it currently.
Yeah, you look like a fit guy, so you obviously have your own strategy that you follow. But I find a lot of people do practice that. But I practiced it for many, many years and still do to a large extent today. Not as disciplined, because I know my body at this point much better, right? Mm-hmm. So I found the strategy. I did give it my best effort with the help of a mentor. And I think that part is so critical. Having someone, maybe you're not calling them a mentor, but just someone you can call for advice, someone that you can watch do what it is you're looking to do, someone who is what it is you're looking to become. Just having that model that you can imitate and do what they're doing, right? And ask them for help. But if you don't have that, it's not a reason not to do it, right? Because I find that step 2, when you give your best effort, you'll find those people always. And then number 3 was grow your inherited beliefs. Okay, so identify the strategy, give your best effort, grow my inherited beliefs. Before I ask you about your newest book, how do you grow your inherited beliefs? What does it look like? Like, how do you still to this day grow your inherited beliefs?
Oh, absolutely. The same way that I always have. And I'll try to say it in the simplest way possible. I will say, congratulations on your successful, life, especially in this area of your physical fitness and your health. And I'll go so far to state it this way, because I agree with your assessment. I'm probably in the best health and fitness of my life. I'm 56 and a half years old.
Awesome, man. You're my dad's age. And let me tell you, I love you, Dad, if you're listening, but drastic difference here. Drastic difference.
Well, and I'm, equal parts humbled and encouraged by, any sort of feedback like that.
You look like you're in your early 40s, by the way, and I mean that. Maybe early 40s.
Well, thank you. I am a manifesting expert. I suppose if I were on here telling you that your beliefs are more powerful than your actions,
yeah,
and I was, whatever, it's probably important that I can present this
100%.
However, as you can well imagine, this isn't the reason why I'm living this way. I would live this way were I never on camera. But thank you for saying that. And I will say, for yourself, for me, okay, if I look at what are some of my most important components of my regimen for health and fitness, and I'm a manifester, right? I'm a manifesting expert. So why am I talking about what I do? Isn't that supposed to be a dirty word for manifestors? Aren't we supposed to just be able to think of it, change how we think, and make it happen? Well, here's what I will say to that. I'll just name off a few things. I'm an avid runner. I drink at a minimum 1 gallon of water every day. I hardly ever miss. I meditate. I get a good night's sleep. I eat very well. Those are 5 things that one might say, hey, yeah, if you do those 5 things, you'll be fit, right? You'll be healthy. Well, I guarantee you there are people doing those 5 things that aren't. And I've been one of those people in the past. Now, so there's no magic formula to follow. What I will say is this: all those 5 things I mentioned that I do, this is going to sound kind of fantastic. They allow me to believe that I am fit. Okay.
The actions allow you to believe.
So actions are important because, like I said, very often in 4-dimensional space-time, there are things I need to do so that I believe, right? And fitness is something that I'm capable of believing. I'm on the second story right now. I am not capable of believing that I can step out the window and fly with no assistance. Okay.
Yeah.
But those aren't the kinds of things that I'm interested in coming to believe. I am interested in manifesting miracles like health and fitness.
Yeah.
Love and a soulmate, fulfilling fatherhood, wealth and community partnership, things like that, which are the true miracles of life in my experience and estimation. And how do I grow my beliefs? Well, very simply, I start by being honest about where I am. And a good way for someone to do that, if you've never done this before, now I have a very specific belief raising process that I lead people through. Okay. And I'm, it would be silly to try to go through the whole thing, of course, right here in this time frame. However, I will say that starting where I start is very important. And so I begin the same way. It's the same way I began the very first time I did it. It's the same way I do it now here today. I sit down. Now, of course, I'm going to do this in an area of my life that I'm not manifesting. Well, I'll put it this way: an area of my life where my reality is still catching up with my dreams. Okay. And like I said, I expect to be experiencing that my whole life. I want to be experiencing that my whole life. It's not dissatisfying. It can be frustrating from time to time, of course, but it's fun. It's an adventure. It makes, one of my books is called Why Quantum Physicists Play Grow a Greater You. And Grow a Greater You is a good name for this game we're playing, right?
Yeah.
So I do an emotional vomit. That's a good word for it. And I call it an emotional vomit because since it's a part of my life I'm dissatisfied with, it's not going to be pleasant what I write.
Mm-hmm.
So I write, how do I really feel right now about me and my life when I look squarely in the eye of how I'm able to manifest this? The last time
You
I used
create
this
pain about your current situation.
right. Being honest, which is, it's, we're used to going through our days. When I experience emotional, mental pain, that's not typically something I double down on. This is an instance, though, where I'm giving myself free and full permission to explore without reservation, without worrying about how I ought to feel about it, how I wish I felt about it, how I should feel about it,
Yep.
Those types of things that might often limit or put my my thoughts into a narrower box. I say, no, how do I really feel? And I write it all out, free form. I just let it flow onto the paper. I don't censor it. And that gives me a starting point. Then I've developed an emotional reference chart that's an ascending list of emotional states. And I simply identify where I am on that chart.
Oh, cool.
And then I go about writing myself into the next highest emotional perspective. I ask
Writing
myself,
yourself in.
like, let's say if I realize after my initial writing that I feel worried and depressed.
Yep.
Okay. The next highest emotional state perhaps is anger. All right. Well, I say, okay, Greg. How would this part of my life look like? How would it work? How would it function for me to feel angry about it instead of worried about it? And I explore that fully in my writing. Now, the key here is that I'm not making a quantum leap. Okay. I won't try to explain the entire process from start to finish, but I will say the key, going back to that ditch metaphor, when I make sure that I'm only moving one emotional perspective up on the scale and writing my way into that, which by the way, after I write my way into that perspective, after I've explored, well, how would this look for me to be feeling angry about it?
Yes.
I then manifest that perspective until it's very real to me.
Yeah.
The key is it's not a quantum leap. I'm not trying to reach to the top of the ditch.
Yep.
I'm reaching where I can reach. And the reason that's a key is because, I mentioned the fact that our inherited beliefs are in our subconscious. And I mentioned that means that that's below our conscious awareness. Well, there's some other things about the subconscious that we need to be aware of. One is it does not understand word-based communication nor logic. It does not understand all this. Our conversation right now is gibberish to our subconscious.
Okay.
It also does not jibe or understand emotions that are too different from what's already in there. So when we take a quantum leap of emotion, whether that's through a positive affirmation or simply wanting to feel better or what have you, a quantum leap of an emotional state does have an effect on our conscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it can make us feel better. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a great thing to feel better. It, however, has no effect on our subconscious. So for me, and in the process I teach, and the reason that it works so well is because by taking one small step from, worry to anger, let's say, that resonates with the subconscious. The subconscious, the writing that I do to write myself into the next highest emotional perspective, that resonates with the subconscious. The subconscious hears that, understands that, isn't scared off by it. You could think of our subconscious as having low wall security. It's got a wall high enough to keep out let's say, the whims and the impulses and the very immediate and strong energies that will rise up from from moment to moment during the day. But the wall is low enough that we can get over it if we're honest. And moving up one small emotional perspective at a time keeps us honest. It actually grows our beliefs. Our subconscious allows this action to grow our beliefs. Now, and I'll wrap up by saying this. The good news is, in my process, that there's only 25 emotional states. So even if I'm starting all the way at the bottom, I find it takes at most a day, sometimes two, to truly move into the next highest emotional perspective and truly be manifesting this part of my life from it. Wow. So it's not a lengthy process, and it really actually works. And one of the coolest things about it, the minute you move one emotional perspective up on the emotional reference chart, you are manifesting a new version of reality from those new beliefs that you've created. Yeah. It actually happens. Now, like I said, it's not the reality we ultimately want, which exists at the perspective of love and ecstasy, which is at the very top of the chart. But it's very encouraging to see and understand those changes. And it really motivates you and keeps you going on the process.
Wow, that was great. That was a really amazing way of explaining and answering that question of how do we grow our subconscious beliefs. And you explained it and painted a really great picture. And it really all comes down to grabbing where you can reach rather than going from the lowest emotion, whatever that is, all the way up to love and ecstasy and trying to just be there. Like a lot of people just immediately say, oh, I need to be more positive. I need to be more grateful. So they sit there and they're grateful. They're grateful. And again, not a bad thing, right? Although it might take a lot longer to manifest what you want by doing that than by going one step at a time. I'm a giant proponent of 1% progress. That's super powerful. And I love this so much, Greg, because one, you're giving us a ton of time here, which is great. I want to respect your time and ask you about your book, but you've given us enough to start now. You've given us the 3 steps. You've dive deep into that third step of how we can do it. So we can literally start right now. But for those people who want the mentor, for those people who they're really bought into this, they really want to change an aspect of their life, for those really, really committed people. And if you're not that person right now, that's fine. It might change. But for those who are, they got to grab your book and they've got to check out your class that starts this upcoming week. So for those watching this again later on, there's going to be links to Greg's website and his socials and all that stuff. But for those listening, right as this episode drops, there's a few very exciting things for you. So the first thing is your latest book, your 8th book, which is titled A Handbook for Those Already Born: How to Manifest Better Versions of Reality. And if you look in the background, guys, it's a nice blue book with what is that? The Mandela flower in the middle?
It's my graphic artist. Yeah, it is. It's an atom. Like a mandala. Yeah, I agree. That's definitely, thank you. That's what I was going for.
I love that. No, it's a beautiful cover. So, okay. So why is this your 8th book? What are you hoping to accomplish to help people with this book that the first 7 just might not have helped them with?
This book is It's funny. This is book number 8, as you said, and I made sure that I titled it so that it's pretty hard to say it's not for you, right? Because if you're watching or listening to this, I promise you, you are already born. There's no doubt. And very much like you mentioned earlier, Brandon, that how much time I spent as an adult doing those first 2 steps of my 3 steps, right? Seeking good instruction, giving my best effort, but not understanding that 3rd step of growing my inherited subconscious beliefs. I truly believe at our core, now you mentioned this, okay? And this, I'll try not to make this long-winded because I'm talking about the book. But you mentioned this earlier, that we are energy. We're not made of energy. We are energy. In fact, every single thing that exists here in this, 4-dimensional space-time, because we can use lasers now, we can see that it is all moving. And I'm not talking about the movement of the earth or, movement spurred by outside agitation like wind. This is movement of the energy itself that is temporarily existing as a material object, temporarily, but not abandoning its energy state. So what are we really? We are light. I use the term God, and I don't use it in a religious sense. We could call it the quantum field. We could call it the one consciousness. We could call it the source. There's many names we could give it. It's what we are. In fact, a human is very much like an island on an archipelago. And I used to be a geography teacher many moons ago. So forgive the geography term. An archipelago most commonly is thought of as a group of islands or a chain of islands, right? An archipelago is a humongous underwater landmass that is breaking the surface on a few little points. And those points we call islands. We are an island in an archipelago, and we are breaking the surface and bringing God to the surface. Okay. Just like the islands do in an archipelago. So what's happening for us is that who we really are is shining, into the world and manifesting the world that is shining into. In fact, we could say your world is a reflection of what's inside you. Literally. Okay. Once again, when we talk about this kind of stuff, I'm talking about science. It can sound like new age. It can sound fanciful. We're radiating our outer world from our inner world. And we have these shadows I mentioned earlier. We have these parts of life that are painful. Some of them we can't fix. We can't fix that we're getting older. We can't fix that we have loss. We can't fix that we have distance. So we're separated from things, that sort of thing. Not to my knowledge, I don't know how to grow my beliefs enough to fix those things. And I'm not interested. I'm interested in fixing what I can fix. Yeah. And what I can fix are the limiting beliefs that stand between the light of who and what I really am, the light of love, the light of God, the light of source energy, whatever we want to call it, and that outer world. These limiting beliefs stand between who and what I really am and the outer world, and they cast shadows into the outer world. And those shadows are the painful parts of our life, the frustrating and unfulfilling parts of our life. And this book, which I love, is and different from my previous books. This book is an explanation from source energy, from the quantum field, to me, to you, to all of us, about what's happening, what's going on, and how to change that if you want to.
Cool. Yeah, and I don't think they, if they pick up the book, it sounds like they'd want to do that.
Well, I want to do it. It's hard for me to imagine other people not wanting to do it.
Exactly. I think everyone listening right now wants to improve and be better, and they're always looking for the edge that will help them to get what they want. And for those who really want that edge, you've got your program coming up, which is your program an extension of the book for those who want guidance? Or if it's not that, then what is it?
No, I have a coaching program that starts January 15th. It's called From Vision to Manifestation. And it absolutely is an extension of my most recent book. Certainly, it encompasses aspects of everything that I've explored and shared throughout my career as some people call me the law of attraction science guy. So it's a 12-week course. You will spend 12 weeks being tutored by a manifesting expert. That's me, by the way. You'll also be part of a closed Facebook group with other people just as hungry as you to learn how to manifest better versions of reality in any part of your life. In fact, I would say, as a manifesting coach, how lucky am I? My job is to teach people to turn up their manifesting power. Now, I will say this, in our 12 weeks together, and you did mention, Justin, Brandon, that we would be airing this episode, I think, right before the 15th.
Yeah.
And I will keep 2 seats available for folks watching this. I would love to have part of your audience. I love your broadcast. I think that anybody who is a regular watcher or gets a lot out of it would be a wonderful part of this group, because ultimately, how valuable is that to be part of a group of like-minded people and form relationships? But I'll take you from start to finish over those 12 weeks. I'll be turning up your manifesting power. You won't have to learn how to manifest. You're already manifesting. What you'll learn is how to manifest these most important parts of your life more intentionally. Because, I mentioned earlier, manifesting isn't really an esoteric thing. It's an ordinary thing. We can't stop doing it. There's no opt-out, but we do have one big option and choice with manifesting. And that is, rather than do it by default, we can do it more intentionally. And that's really what we're talking about here, because manifesting, when you mentioned going through life, and I referenced it too, going through life, I don't want to say floundering, because it's not, most people that I meet, they're not wholly unsuccessful. They're very successful. They have practices that work. They're good at their life in many areas. There's just a few really important ones that they just have a need to manifest better.
Yeah.
Well, it's incumbent on us, if we want to manifest our life by default, that's fine. There's no punishment for that. That we're not even doing anything wrong. Manifesting by default is simply manifesting our life with the subconscious beliefs we inherited and not changing them. And we can certainly, there's people that go through their entire life and that's all they do, and their life doesn't suck as a result of that. So we're not demonizing, the default manifesting, if you will. We're saying that we have the option to do it more intentionally, and it really works.
Awesome. I love that. So everyone, again, Greg's book is right behind him. The title is A Handbook for Those Already Born: How to Manifest Better Versions of Reality. And then we have his upcoming program as well. So there isn't much time to get in that program. So if you're listening on launch day or the day after or the next day, go to the link in the description, right? Start a conversation with Greg. We're going to have all the relevant links down there for you so you can check that out. And Greg, where's the best place for people to continue following you, to either start the conversation or just to follow your progress moving forward?
Yeah, no, I thank you for the question, Brandon. And anyone who has questions about the coaching, the manifesting coaching program, or manifesting in general, easy to reach me on social media. certainly I would say the primary points would be my website, which is manifestthebigstuff.com. And if you're listening to this after January 15th, I have other programs that you can learn about there that will be coming. I also have a Facebook group called Manifest the Big Stuff with Greg Kuhn, Creating Our Realities Together. Of course, that's free. That's a good place to go to as well. I do share exclusive content with my Facebook group, and that's a good place to be, to make sure that you're, front and center for any potential opportunities to engage more thoroughly. So I would say probably those two places I would recommend folks head.
Awesome. Sounds good. Links are in the description, guys, so you don't have to remember any of that. Just go to the description. Links will be right there. And Greg, it was a pleasure to meet you today. Congratulations on the launch of your 8th book. I hope everyone here listening goes and grabs a copy. I know I'm going to. And I appreciate the time you've given, and I appreciate the mission and the passion for the mission that you're on. So thank you very much, sir.
Right back at you, Brandon. This was truly a pleasure. I have been excited about appearing with you since we first scheduled it. And I'm not going to be a stranger to your broadcast. Well done.
Thank you, sir. Right back at you. From step 1 to step 3 of manifesting, you've got the recipe. You know how to go deep into each one of those steps. But if you want the next level, then you've got to grab Greg's newest book. One more time, the title is A Handbook for Those Already Born, How to Manifest Better Versions of Reality. The manifestation program is also coming up soon on January 15th. If you're listening to this after, no worries. Go to the description, click the links. You'll find all upcoming programs and all other noteworthy news from Mr. Greg Kuhn. I hope you loved this conversation with Greg. I know I did. It's one of our longest episodes, which is really cool. So if you did like it, please share this show with just one other person who could use it as well. Thank you for being the best part of the Be Better team and for tuning in. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.